Welcome back, Altered players. My name is Requisine, and in today's video, I'll be showing off my Lyra Unique collection. Now, before we get into the video, go ahead and drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more Altered TCG content. And if you are a content creator watching this, then I challenge you to create a video before Trial by Frost, showing off your unique collection for your favorite faction. Maybe in a format like this, or maybe something a little quicker, or whatever you want to do, but I want to see what uniques that my fellow content creators are using. Anyways, let's get into it. So I would have liked to play Muna, but somehow I ended up playing Lyra, and I don't regret that or anything. Lyra has been really fun. Maybe next set I'll play Muna, but for now I focused on Lyra. So most of my uniques are Lyra, and if I'm not mistaken, I have 39 uniques. Yeah, that's quite a bit. That's like enough for maybe what, 13 decks if I use each and one in a different deck. That's crazy. So if you watch my previous video about Altered effects, you would know I categorize uniques into 3 categories: bad, playable, and optimal. So here I'm going to start off with my bad uniques, and I'm going to go from my least bad to my most bad. One of my least bad uniques is the Martingale and the Esmeralda. I picked up this Martingale because I was experimenting around with some uniques that allowed me to put a card from my hand in reserve to draw a card, and I saw this one and it was at a decent price, so I picked it up, and I've just never used it. And then thinking about it now, at dusk is the worst time to use this effect, because if you get that resupply, then you're kind of cooked, and if the Martingale doesn't have fleeting, then it's going to overflow and it's just going to be a bad time. So I don't know, maybe this card is playable, but I've never played it, and after thinking about it after I got it, it seems kind of bad. And as for the Esmeralda, this effect is incredibly strong, but that landmark restriction just makes it incredibly unreliable. So that's why I have it here in the bad uniques as well. Maybe it'll get easier as time goes on, but I'd rather have a boost condition or no condition, so that'd be great too. All right, so next up we have these 3 here. I think they're about equally bad: the Hatter, Tomoe Gozen, and Kodama. So the Hatter, this is one of my first uniques. I bought it pretty cheaply, and I just thought that it had really good stats, and then I like the arrow effect, and it could put something to sleep. You know, if you put something to sleep and you got 5 in mountain and water, that's going to be hard for your opponent to interact with. And then, you know, most Lyra decks use Hatter anyway, so, you know, I thought it was an easy slot in. But, you know, the dice roll is just really cheeky. The arrow doesn't really matter because you're not playing it from reserve. And I mean, common Hatter is already good. So, yeah, this one's just kind of not hitting for me. It did win me a few games though, so I can't act like it's too bad. Tomoe Gozen, I've never used it. It doesn't really have much to make up for it. Also, if you need a landmark for this. Now the effect is really good. Switching Expedition for 2 mana with these stats is pretty good. So you know, I can't like the effect is bad, but requiring a landmark really does suck. Obviously, if this didn't have a landmark restriction, it was just straight make a character switch Expedition with the arrow with these stats and cost, that would be amazing. But of course, that landmark restriction. And then lastly, the Kodama. This is a recent pull of mine. I don't know how I feel about this. It needs a boost, has to go to the reserve. But discarding a permanent is good. And the stats from reserve are, I mean, they're okay. It does gain a sleep from reserve, so I don't know. Maybe if this had a support ability or something like that, I don't know. But yeah, this one's just not very good. Next up is this Tinkerbell here. At dusk is the worst time to use Sabotage, so that's already an L against this. And the stats for a Lyra character from hand is not bad. From reserve it is bad though, and once again there's another landmark restriction. Just to return a spell from the reserve to your hand doesn't seem worth. Even without the landmark restriction, I think this card would not be that good, but it would be more playable with that at dusk Sabotage, and you know, you could get something, but it's just unlikely. And then being able to bounce a spell when you play it from reserve is cool as well. But yeah, this one's pretty bad. And my worst Lyra unique is this Studious Disciple here. Yes, I don't really have much to say about it. It's unplayable from reserve, and from hand I feel like Yeah, it's the decision to pay 1 mana isn't very meaningful. Paying 2 mana for the stats is pretty bad. Maybe if it gained 2 boost, or you know, I could draw a card when I pay 1 as well, it would be good. But yeah, I was pretty disappointed when I pulled this. I saw the name and the faction, I got excited, and then I saw the effect and I was like, wow. But it is what it is. Next up, I want to move on to my playable uniques. No specific order for these. I'm just going to talk about them. The first one is the Hatter. I don't remember if I pulled this or traded for it or bought it. I'm pretty sure I traded for this one. Yeah, with one of my friends in my friend group. So I mean, the stats are pretty good. 9 for 3 is about standard. And this is a spike stat because it's Lyra. And when you play from hand, resupply. It's, you know, it is what it is. You get you another card in reserve, and it's got good stats. And then of course it has the Hatter Anchor ability. Probably never playing this from reserve, but you know, it is what it is. This one, you know, it did what it needed to do before I ended up replacing it. So shout out to the Hatter. Next is this Esmeralda that allows me to resupply when I play a 0 character if it has 1 more boost. I got this attempting to try out a deck that has a bunch of resupply when you play a 0 statistic character. And while I never really got to pop off with it, you know, she did something. Trying to try it out before Trial by Frost. But yeah, it's been pretty fun using this. No complaints here. I like the stats from hand here. I have another draw package here. I was picking up low cost uniques that allow me to put a card from my hand in reserve to draw. Just wanted to try them out, and haven't really gotten to use them too much, but they are neat. First, I'll talk about the Esmeralda. Put a card from my hand in reserve to resupply. That one's kind of tough, and I don't like the stats from reserve either. That 3 cost for that is kind of meh, but the support ability is neat, and she can fill up your reserve pretty quickly. So pretty good with something like a Nancy or something like that. This Ouroboros Trickster here. Put a card from my hand in reserve to roll the die, and 4+ draw a card, otherwise resupply. I'm just going to call that the croupier effect from now on. And when I play it from hand, roll a die to make the next card I play this afternoon cost 1 less. So this one's pretty interesting. I haven't gotten to use it yet, but I mean, it would do what I needed to do, which is to draw a card in the early game. And I have another one here for 1 mana with the Arrow Croupier effect. Stats are terrible, but you know, it does what I need to do, which is put a card from my hand in reserve to get me another card. And I really like the support ability as well, although I would consider playing this from reserve because the effect is just so good. And I just picked up this Trickster today that has the Croupier effect from hand, and I could use the support ability to bounce a spell. I figured this one would be pretty good too. It doesn't have the condition, so I was happy about that, but it is just from hand only though. I mean, I feel like if it was an arrow, then it would have been way more expensive, and someone probably would have picked it up before I was able to get to it as well. So I mean, I don't know, I'm grateful to have this one. And then the best one I have is this Studious Disciple here. This one is really nice. Put a card from my hand in reserve to draw a card. I really like this one. So this is one of my better playable uniques. Obviously, if I didn't have to put a card from my hand in reserve, it would be a lot more optimal, but it is what it is. I'd also like this effect if I had to discard a card from my reserve as well, as long as it was on an arrow. Next, I want to talk about some of my removal options that I've accrued. Once again, we have another Hatter. There was a point in time where I used 3 Hatter uniques. This was when I was a little less experienced with the game, and I was just using the same character, which I like to do. I like to have 1 character as all 3 of my uniques. But with the Hatter, I was using them thinking I wasn't losing much, but I was losing that common slot because the common Hatter is so good. But now I know. This one costs 5 from hand, and I can just spin a card to the top of the owner's deck. Really solid, and I like the stats too. And obviously you're not going to play this from reserve because it has the Hatter reserve effect to anchor a card. This one, pretty good, really good against Axiom. If someone plays something that costs 4 or more as well, then it's a really huge tempo play. Putting it back on top of their deck is better than bouncing it to their hand because it makes them draw 1 less card because they're seeing the same card again. So Hatter's been pretty neat, and I liked having it in my collection, and I would love to use it again one day. Next up is a Cernunos that lets me put a card in my hand in reserve to discard a character or permanent. Now I haven't used this one yet. I wish I had a support ability because I don't want to play it from reserve. But I picked it up just so I could have a card that can remove anything, discards it instead of putting it on top of their deck. So maybe one day this can come out of my binder and I'll end up using it. Next up, I have this Loki here. This one's mainly just for my collection. You know, I just thought it was cool. It has the arrow effect to make players discard their hand and reserve, which is good to draw 3. And it has the reserve effect, the support effect to discard to draw a card. I think it's pretty neat. Mainly got it for my collection. Never used it, but I guess it is playable. I don't know. The lucky effect is really strong. You just don't see it too often. Next, I have these 2 Pathfinders here. So the first one is to put a card from hand and reserve to sabotage. Picked this up because, you know, I was looking for more hand to reserve effects since I was playing Fen a lot. And I like Bravo's Pathfinder because it's essentially a vanilla. It always has season, but it can have any effect. I really love vanilla uniques because they can have any effect and their combinations can be really powerful, like if you just get like the right combination of thing. Anyway, arrow sabotage is nice. And then the support ability to return a card from my reserve to my hand, beautiful, love it. Probably use this 2 or 3 times, but it is pretty good. And another Pathfinder I have here is to put a card from my hand in reserve to discard a permanent. Now the stats on this one are kind of poor. Being restricted to permanents, obviously for a 3 mana cost makes sense. It just sucks if my opponent doesn't use permanents, but I'm glad that I have a low cost permanent removal option in Lyra. Obviously I would like this effect without any restrictions, just discard a permanent. It costs 3 or less. Maybe I'll be able to find that one day. I did miss one, but there are more cards coming out, so maybe I'll get one. And the support effect is interesting, I suppose. Rarely get to use it, but when I do, it is pretty good. And lastly, these 2 are late additions to my collection. I realized I didn't have any good sleep effects for my uniques, so I went and picked these up for pretty cheap. The Alice lets me discard a card from my reserve. If I do, target character gains a sleep. It obviously has after you. For 2 mana, I feel like this one's pretty good. 2 mana sleep, get you some stats on the board. Seems pretty good to me, and it's an arrow, so I can use it from reserve if need be. And in Fen, you'll typically have a card in your reserve to discard for the cost anyway, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue. And moving forward with the whole exhausted reserve thing, maybe this won't be too hard to do anyway. And I picked up this Amali as well. The stats from hand are really good. Amali's identity is to discard a card from reserve to get an effect, and this effect is to put something to sleep. And I saw this, someone was selling it for really cheap, and those are really good stats, and I put something to sleep as well. It's likely I'll be advancing if I play a card with this much stats and essentially turn off one of the cards in their expedition. On the back end, it's kinda, the stats aren't that impressive, but it has the support ability to return a spell from my reserve to my hand. Having that support ability is what made me want to get this card. If it didn't have that support ability and it just had the hand ability, I would have passed on it, but that combination together, in my opinion, is really strong. Haven't used either of these yet, but I will in the future, because I want to try out some sleep unique, because sleep's pretty strong, I figured out, especially since I started using small step giant leap. So the last of my playables, I've got some utility cards I want to talk about here. First, let's talk about Hathor. So this first Hathor here, when a card leaves reserved during the afternoon, you can have target character other than me lose fleeting. Very interesting effect. I traded for this one. I'm thinking maybe I was disadvantaged in the trade. I thought it was pretty even, but you know, whatever. It is what it is. Really weird effect. I've used it about twice, but it just gets removed instantly because I play this, I have Inkcaster in my reserve, or I have something else in my reserves I don't want to keep using, and they're just like, no, you're not doing that. So yeah, the effect obviously I guess is really good if it gets removed as soon as it hits the board. So a great card to anchor as well. And this other Hathor, you play another character at base statistic 0, you can put a card from your hand in reserve to give something anchored. I don't mind the hand to reserve cost too much, but this one obviously can't be abused as if it didn't have that cost. So this one's kind of, I guess, fair. The 2 mana cost I really like from hand, really like that. And it has a 0 stat as well, so it can trigger other things. Yeah, I can't wait to try this one out because I know that effect is really strong. Next, let's talk about these Lyra Navigators. So this first one here, the 2/3, that makes a character other than me lose fleeting. I don't know why I got this. It just seemed cool. I just never put this in any deck. Never even used it once. But you know, I really like the art on Lyra Navigator, so I kind of try to pick those up if they don't have a lot of text on them. I don't know. Maybe one day this will end up being pretty good. I know it'd be good with Inkcaster as well, but I just haven't used it. And this other one here, I don't know why I got this. when I play a character with a statistic of 0, I can put a card from my hand in reserve to return a spell from my reserve to my hand. Not that impressive. Obviously, if it didn't have the hand to reserve cost, then it would be much better. But it is what it is. Maybe with the whole exhausted reserve thing coming up, this won't be too bad. So next, I have this Dr. Frankenstein that has pretty decent stats for the effects as well. I can discard a card from my reserve, activate the arrow trigger of a permanent I control. Pretty standard Dr. Frankenstein. Thankfully, I don't need to have to leave the expedition or roll the dice. It's just on the arrow, so I appreciate that. And at dusk, I can have target character other than me lose fleeting. I really like that ability, and I wish I could have it on a different name, something like Lyra Navigator or Cernonos. But regardless, I think that this is pretty good, and I want to cook with this one day. I think Dr. Frankenstein is super slept on. I would like to get some more Lyra Frankenstein uniques, because I think just being able to trigger Lyra Festival willy-nilly is really nice. Even if you're not going for a festival win, I just think being able to give something fleeting anchor or asleep on a whim like this is just super awesome. Lastly, out of my playables, I have some stat sticks. So this Cernonos here is just, honestly, I don't even know how to describe it. From hand, it's a literal same as the outer faction Cernonos, and from reserve, it kind of is too. I mean, you have to put a card from your hand in reserve, which isn't too bad, and then it makes the next card you play cost 1 less. So essentially, it's like playing the regular Cernonos from reserve, and it's also got the option of the support ability, which is also really nice. Yeah, I've used this when I pulled it out of a pack, and I've used it a couple times when I was first starting the game, and it was pretty solid. Like, I don't have any complaints about it. It's literally just the replacement rare. And the support ability is also really nice. So solid unique there. And then I have these stat sticks here, this Hathor. I don't know why the heck I bought this card. It was like $5. I was like, whatever, I'll take it. I mean, it's not, you know, god awful. 1 mana for 0/2/2 is actually kind of insane if you think about it. Only problem is Hathor is one of the best commons, and not let alone Lyra, but the entire game. So using a unique slot for a common that's already really good is kind of tough. Never used it, but I don't think that this card is terrible. That's why I have it in playable. And Ouroboros Trickster here. This effect, obviously you need a landmark, and it's just not happening. But for 1 mana, these stats are pretty good in Lyra, and it has the support effect to anchor something. Yeah, this card is actually pretty sweet. I pulled this one out of a promo pack, and I was quite happy to see it. I haven't gotten a chance to use it yet, but I think it has a home in somebody's deck. All right, lastly, let's go over my strong uniques. Maybe I'll go from the worst of my best to the best. So I guess my worst best unique would be this Tomoe goes in here. Thankfully it has the 6 mana restriction instead of 7, so I can bring it out then, and it has the effect that I would love to have on a 3 mana card. When a card leaves your reserve during the afternoon with the 1 target character at hand cost 3 or less, other than me gains anchored. Like, if this Tomoe goes and costs 3 mana and I was able to get it for the price that I did, I would just have it in my deck all the time. This effect is just so good, but it's just so hard to use at 4 mana. While this isn't entirely optimal because of the mana cost, the effect is really strong, and the times that I've tested it out, I was able to get a lot anchored with this. So yep, shout out to Tomoe goes, and hopefully I'll be able to use it more in the future, especially with some of the new Trial by Frost reveals. Next is this Tanuki here. I got this one in a trade with a random person on the app, so thank you. The main reason I got it was because of the hand to reserve sabotage. This was back when I was playing Finn. You know, I was like, cool, arrow sabotage that let me put a card from my hand in reserve. I really like this, but I stopped using it pretty quickly, and then I started playing Navinka, and this card has just been amazing in Navinka. Hand to reserve, she doesn't do much of that, but it does come in handy, and obviously rolling the dice to get a spell back is also really strong. Never used the support ability on this because I always want to bring it back out. Stats are kind of bad, to be honest. They could be much better, but it is what it is. It's a Lyra card, so I guess I can't complain too much. Next is this Esmeralda here. The stats are pretty terrible, and I can pay 1, which is always bleh. But if I do, I can give something fleeting, anchored, or asleep. This is a good you may pay 1 ability. I like this. It's kind of meaningful because I can use it to get the effect, or I cannot, and I still have the second effect when I play another character with a base statistic of 0, resupply. Very strong sought after effect. I traded for this one locally with one of my best friends, so shout out to him. I do wish that it had a hand cost of 2. The hand cost of 3 makes it kind of awkward when using this resupply effect, but you know, it is what it is. I have popped off at this one before, so yeah, I do like that effect, and hopefully I get more of it in Trial by Frost. Next is category Mage Dancer. I did a trade for this, so shout out to the guy that traded me for my Axiom Tinkerbell. Got, you know, Lyra stats. The stats are pretty bad because the effects are so good. When I play from reserve, I can put a card from my hand in reserve to give something fleeting. You know, it is what it is. Not a terrible effect, it'll be much worse. And when I roll one or more dice, I can bounce a card from my reserve to my hand. That's the S tier effect in Lyra. And this Mage Dancer has been pretty nice to me. This isn't the best Mage Dancer, but you know, he's done quite a bit of work, so shout out to him. And as we're getting towards the end here, just want to say if you made it this far in the video, then go ahead and drop that like button and make sure you subscribe as well for more Altered TCG content. So next, I want to talk about this Alice here. Pretty, you know, Alice stats. She has the spike stats like she does, and when I play another character with a base statistic of 0, I can return a card from my reserve to my hand. Now, I got this before I knew this ability was S tier, so I kind of came out super ahead in the trade, but it was to like one of my best friends, so you know, I'll make it up to him in the future. Yeah, this effect, I honestly can't tell you how good it is because this card hits the board, it gets removed, and then it gets sabotaged. I probably use this effect maybe one time, or I just don't draw it, or there was one time where I drew it and I had to put it in mana because I needed the other cards in my hand. I imagine this effect being super strong, and I can't wait to play more of it. I am going to test more of this out. Yeah, and if you have a card with this effect and you use it to good success, let me know what you think about it and like what kind of build you use it in. I have it in Navinka, and I've been trying it in Finn as well. Next up is this Conifero Cone Man. Now, I kind of down on Cone Man. It's not a lot of good unique Cone Mans, but this one is pretty nuts. So when I play it from hand, I can discard a card from my reserve to give it anchored, and it has the S tier effect. At dusk, each character controlled by target player gains fleeting. So yep, really interesting Cone Man. This guy has won me several games. If he comes down and my opponent has no characters in their reserve, then they're just screwed for the next 3 turns, because this comes out and it gets anchored, gives all the characters fleeting. It's still in play the next turn, give everything fleeting, goes to reserve, player from reserve, give everything fleeting, and it just really absolutely just crushes their card advantage over the course of the game. Now, I do wish that I had this effect on a character that costed 2, like a Cloth Dancer. I'm still in the market for one of those. If I can get one at a decent price, I will scoop it up. But this Cone Man, I was able to trade for it, and I'm eternally grateful because it's just been super duper fun. Now, I have been pretty biased. My actual best unique I've probably already went over, but I am about to go over my favorite uniques now, and that are my Flamel. And I have 4 of them because I just really like Lyra Flamel so much. So I'll go in the order that I obtained them. I got these 2 first. Just a 3/4 with the spike stat somewhere, and I can return a spell from my reserve to my hand on an arrow effect. No complaints there. You know, after playing with it, maybe I kind of do wish that they had a 4 hand cost and a 3 reserve cost to make them a little more resilient to removal. But I mean, they've done a lot of work for me. The one with the mountain spike stat has each character controlled by target player gains fleeting. Super strong ability on a support ability. Really love it. I think you can only find this on uniques as well, so that's something else to watch out for. And then the other one lets me give something anchored. When I was using the aloe vera and stuff like that, this was also really good from reserve. And also, these are really good to bounce back to your hand with the Inkcaster or something like that, because these spike stats are serious. Yeah, these Flamel have done a lot of work for me, so I really appreciate them. That's why I have them at the top of my list. And the last one I obtained was this one here. 4 hand costs. The stats are kind of bad, but the effect lets me discard a character with hand cost 3 or less. Really good. And at dusk, I can return a spell from my reserve to my hand. Really nice removal and spell bounce. This one, it's been kind of hard to use, to be honest. I feel like the meta has shifted to a point where it's really hard to get value out of this. Discarding a character can be devastating though. That's why I went ahead and picked this one up. I thought it was really nice. And the last one that I obtained is a 4 hand for reserve cost with even worse stats, but I do like the effects of putting a card from my hand in reserve to discard a character with hand cost 3 or less. Really powerful. I've been looking for this effect for a long time, and I finally came up on it, and it was on a Flamel, and it was at a really good price, so I was like, yes, I felt super lucky to get this. And then when I play it from my hand, I can bounce a spell from my reserve to my hand. That's the reason why you play Flamel. That's Flamel's identity. Every Flamel is going to let you return a spell from your reserve to your hand. This one just also lets me discard characters. I can put a spell in my hand and then bounce it. I guess it pops on for free or whatever. Or you just get something else from my hand in reserve. I am looking for this effect as well that lets me discard from my reserve in order to discard a character, but don't have that one yet. And if I'm in a pinch, I can just use the support ability to bounce a spell from my reserve to my hand. And that's it for my Lyra Uniques. Once again, hopefully you can get some other content creators to make a video like this with their favorite factions unique. Hopefully I want to see some good Bravos ones and maybe some good Muna ones outside of the S tiers too. But yep, thanks everyone for watching this video. Go ahead and make sure to like it if you haven't, and also just subscribe for more Altered TCG content. Are you excited for Trial by Frost? Because I sure am. Alright, thanks everyone for watching. I'll see y'all in the next video.